Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast, a show that celebrates the music of Andrew McMahon and focuses on a song each episode. My name's Steve, and we're flying into the new year of 2025, celebrating an anniversary this year. 2023 was the year of Tilt at the Wind No More, and yes, it's been almost 2 years since that album was released, if you can believe that. 2024 was the year of the return of something corporate, and as much joy as that brought fans this year, we're looking forward to a year focused on Jacks Mannequin. Rumors of a tour on the horizon. Fans are looking forward to the Red Rocks show in July when all three bands come together again. So for these next handful of episodes, I'm going to call this Jacks January. Now, honestly, it'll probably extend into February, and I'm certain it'll extend into February, but I'm calling it that because it kind of has a catchy title. But it's been quite a while since we've talked about a Jacks Mannequin song here on the show. I went back to our list of episodes and I saw that the last one I talked about was Casting Lines way back in April. Prior to that, we had Bruised in February and Bloodshot in January, but those are the last three Jacks songs we've talked about here on the pod. So I just had to find the right person to kick us back into gear. Joining me today is returning guest, author Hazel Jacks, and she is back for her fourth time. Hazel is writing the Fire Island series, you may remember, which so far includes the books Solitaire, Return to Solitaire, and most recently, Surf Road. Came out about a year ago. She's built this world of characters who happen to enjoy the same music that a lot of us do. So fortunately for us, there's a soundtrack to each one of these books that she writes. Welcome back to the show, Hazel.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
A four-timer, so you're getting to be a pretty big deal around here.
Yeah, when you said four, I was like, really? I thought it was third, but yeah, you're right. Four.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I had almost forgotten, to be honest, too. Like, I had to count. I was like, well, I know what songs I've talked with you about, but I was like, oh, yeah, that is three, which makes this four. So for those of you who aren't aware, we talked about Restless Dream, which is episode 48. That was when we first met. Rescued, episode 56. And Watch the Sky, number 74. Thanks for coming back again.
I like being here. I love chatting about all things Andrew, something corporate, Jack's Mannequin. So thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're going to do today. We are going to talk about maybe a little bit of all of the above, but definitely focusing on one era of Andrew's career, if you will. Those of you listening, if you haven't listened to those episodes, go back and listen to my conversations with Hazel because they're always fun, and I know tonight's will be as well. So thanks for joining us. I had the unique opportunity, Hazel, to see all three songs that I just mentioned perform live on 3 different nights of the cruise. So back in November. Restless Dream was on one night, Rescued was on the Jacks Mannequin night, and then on the Something Corporate night, of course, it was Walk the Sky. What you may not realize is that I actually thought of you twice while I was on the cruise, believe it or not. It was just some cool moments on that cruise. Some of those cool moments were me hearing the songs that I've talked about with podcast guests like yourself, and those songs now, in a way, somewhat remind me of you. So I'm like, oh, Rescued, that's the song I talked to Hazel about. Oh, Restless Dream, oh, I can't wait to tell Hazel they played that one.
That's awesome. I'm totally jealous and heartbroken that I wasn't able to make it on the cruise, but maybe the next one.
Maybe the next one, yeah.
So I was checking out, everybody's posts on Instagram or YouTube and just trying to catch up and see as much of it as I could after the fact. But it looked like a really awesome time.
Yeah, they just, in this week, they just released the recap video. Sixth Man, the company who does those cruises, always does a recap video. And it's more or less a music video set to visuals of a lot of the things that happened on the ship. So it was really cool kind of looking back. You can find it on YouTube. It's only about 3 minutes long. It's set to, of course, the song Holiday from Real. It was a cool look back, and of course it just made us all want to be back on the ship again. But yes, you were definitely missed. As we mentioned before on this show, we had fun hanging out with you in Vegas last year. Again, my wife says hi. She wanted me to make sure I said that.
Yes, tell her I say hello.
I will. And it would have been cool to have you on the ship, but maybe next time. Or maybe we'll find some other show to get together at again soon. We're definitely going to touch on that topic here about live shows. So Hazel, where are you in your writing? Last year, Surf Road came out, and I believe you said that was going to be part 1, although I may be misremembering that. Are you working on part 2, or are you working on another book? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm working on another book. So the Surf Road is kind of a standalone, so it ended. And
Okay.
so the book I'm working on now, my fourth book, is still part of the Fire Island series, but it's just focusing on two different main characters that were both from the friend group in the previous books. So people have been introduced to them, and now this is kind of their story of how they kind of came to be together and what they've gone through.
Okay. Very cool. So definitely still in the same world, related. People who read Solitaire and maybe even Return to Solitaire will be familiar with these characters.
They would. It's definitely still a work in progress. I've been writing a lot slower this past year. I initially had published three books in 14 months,
Wow.
and that was just like outside of my 9 to 5. So it was a lot. I was just a little bit burnt out. So kind of taking a little more time on this one, but hopefully it will be getting released later this summer.
Okay, very cool. But absolutely, you got to take time for you. You got to take time for your family, and it's art, so sometimes art takes time. So
For sure.
glad to hear it's going well. So for those joining us today who haven't heard or aren't familiar, Hazel, can you tell us or remind us how you incorporate this music that we're talking about into your stories in general, or how it inspires you? What does the music have to do with your stories?
So when I was starting to write the first two books, Saltaire and Return to Saltaire, I kind of knew that I wanted music to be a main theme
Hmm.
between the two main characters, and so they would pass songs back and forth to each other. So they would give each other the title of a song, and it's kind of like that very emo early 2000s MySpace, Facebook status, lyric update kind of thing,
Uh-huh.
where it was their way of expressing how they felt without really saying it. So they'd
Hmm.
give them the title of a song. And so I spent a lot of time really building out that playlist and what those songs were. And obviously, I made the characters like the same music that I like. So it was easy to incorporate
Sure.
the songs into the book. And one thing is like some of my books are set in the early 2000s. So I only allow myself to use songs that were released at the time the books are set.
Sure.
A little bit different for my third book, Surf Road. I had a playlist, but I wanted the characters to be a little bit different. So they didn't pass songs back and forth to each other,
Right.
but I did create a playlist that I felt went with the theme of the story and kind of the mood and overall like their life story to kind of match the book.
Hmm.
I feel like that book was a little bit darker and heavier, and so I think the songs were a little more somber and kind of reflected that.
Hmm.
But no matter what, I have always picked a Something Corporate or Jack's Mannequin song to go into each of the playlists just because I love those bands so much.
Sure.
I do plan to include an Andrew song in probably the sixth book.
The sixth book. Wow, you've got the whole. You got. Do you have it all mapped out?
I do, yeah, I have it all
Oh.
mapped out. So there'll be six books total in the series. So that'll
Okay.
be that'll be the last book. I don't know the Andrew song yet, but I know given the time frame of when this book will be set, I'll have some good Andrew songs to pick from.
And last time we chatted, I do remember because Surf Road had just come out. Your third book had just come out. We talked about that playlist a little bit, and I'd listened to that Surf Road soundtrack since then. And at the time, I didn't know some of those songs. Like, for example, I had told you back then I didn't know that Used song. I put that playlist on, and that one hit me immediately. That's like a time and place song for me. I didn't know what that was called. I'm not a big Used fan, obviously. When I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I do love that song." But I remember exactly where I was living at the time when I was listening to that song a lot and that sort of thing. It must have been on the radio or something. I don't know because I feel like it was like the part of the soundtrack to that year or something. I remember the apartment I was living in and who I was living with and like the places I was going. It's really weird how music takes you back like that.
I do the same thing. Like, as I know I was at college and I know I was with my roommates, and I specifically remember instances we would always late at night couldn't sleep or we just had a test or whatever, it'd be midnight and we would kind of all look at each other and be like, should we go to Krispy Kreme? And we'd jump in the car and we'd drive to Krispy Kreme and we would blast, I remember the Used and also Sugar Colt. Windows down, like that was just kind of our thing. So I always, the songs definitely take me back as well. That's why I love it. I
Yeah.
just,
Sugar Cult, I don't know if I've ever mentioned that band. Maybe I have on the show. If I haven't, it's a crime that I haven't because yeah, I was a huge fan in that time frame of Sugar Cult as well. I loved their second and their third album especially. Their last album, oh my gosh, the name is escaping me right now. It had Los Angeles and what is it called? Do It Alone maybe or something like that. Or I don't want to. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank, but I loved that album start to finish. So highly recommend Sugar Cult, and some of those songs absolutely take me back to a time and place. Bouncing Off the Walls takes me back to
Mhm.
a time in college. You can imagine what kind of time, kind of like yours, like some crazy times with friends. Listen to that song. So another song off of the soundtrack for Surf Road I wanted to bring up. I had never heard this before, but it was pretty good. It was by a band called The Morning Of. I feel like every time I talk to a new podcast guest or I'm listening to another podcast that's kind of in the same world as this, I learn about new music, which is really cool for me. And The Morning Of was no exception. It's like it's this acoustic emo-y type of music. The song you used was called Shine. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's honestly, I think the only song that I know, and that one I think kind of just came across it as I was building the playlist.
Hmm.
Spotify sometimes gives you suggestions, and that one came, and I was just like, I just loved how beautiful it sounded, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, and it fit the theme, and so that was how I added it, and I honestly don't know any of their other songs.
Okay, so I don't feel so left out then. I was like, okay, maybe this was another scene staple that I've somehow missed.
No, no.
Plug for a new to me band, The Morning Of. Yeah. So I had it confused. I had to look it up and I was like, oh, I remember this band and I liked them, like a piano rock band. And I looked and the CD I had from that era is a band called The Morning Light. So it definitely was not the same band. Morning Light is a band I found out about through MySpace, like a lot of those bands. So, but not the same band. Morning Light and The Morning Of are two different bands. But what I did learn about The Morning Of, which I thought was a fun fact for our episode today, Jim Wirt produced the album for the band The Morning Of. And Jim Wirt is the same guy that produced Jack's Mannequin, Something Corporate, and of course the song we're talking about today to kind of bring it back around. The songs you always pick when you come to the podcast, again, Restless Dream, Rescued, Watch the Sky, and the one we're talking about today, you always bring like the heavy emotional songs here. They're always songs that I have a personal, they tend to be songs I have a personal attachment to, which makes sense because your playlists are great. So this next song that we're going to talk about kind of fits in with all the others. So to kick off Jack's January, we are talking about another heavy hitter emotionally, like I said, Kill the Messenger. It was track 8 on Everything in Transit, which, in my opinion, track 8 is usually a sweet spot for me. If I look back at a lot of albums I love in my musical history, I tend to find that track 8s are great ones. For example, Fall off of Leaving Through the Window, She Paints Me Blue off of North, and now we're getting Kill the Messenger with Everything in Transit. Everything in Transit was released on August 23rd, 2005. Did you know this song was released in advance of the album, several months in advance?
I did not. When you had sent me kind of the stuff to prep for this, I was super intrigued. I didn't have a lot of time to dive into it
Mm-hmm.
because that wasn't a popular thing to do back then, was it?
I didn't think so. And like you, this is something I found out many, many years later, by the way. I wasn't in that whole world of scouring. I mean, I did the whole MP3 thing where I was getting MP3s like all of us did, but I wasn't like scouring webs like random websites or even artist websites, so not so random websites. But my understanding is he posted it on his website and said, "Here's a new song that we're putting out." And there was two of them. One of them was "Kill the Messenger," which I find to be an interesting choice. The other one didn't surprise me at all. And we've talked about it on the pod before. So I assume that you were not out scouring Jack's Mannequin website that year prior to the album coming out, right?
No, I was not.
Okay, so maybe you're like me where I didn't even know what Jack's Mannequin was until the album came out.
Yeah, and I was trying. I honestly can't even remember the first Jack's Mannequin song that I ever heard. But
Yeah.
I do remember I used Dark Blue as my MySpace song for a really long time.
Oh, nice. Well, good choice. I don't know. I very well may have as well. I don't have that good of a memory for that kind of thing. I know that I used My Favorite Highway, which was one of my favorite piano rock bands at the time. I could draw a lot of comparisons with Jack's Mannequin to that band as well. But again, found out about them through MySpace as well. So they were probably on my profile at some point. There are two different live versions of this song on the Glass Passenger Deluxe Edition. So not only is it track 8 on Everything in Transit, but when the deluxe edition of Glass Passenger came out, they put not one but two live versions, which to me is really surprising. That deluxe edition of Glass Passenger came out in March of 2009, only 6 months after the original version. So you can find an acoustic live version on the Glass Passenger of this song that we're talking about, and a regular live version of that song that we're talking about. Does this song in particular have anything to do with any of the books you've written or the books you will write, or is it just a song you love?
Yeah, so this song will actually be in the playlist in book four.
Oh,
And so I think, we haven't gotten really to the lyrics yet, but it's really going to be in that book because of the lyrics and because of how it makes me feel. I mean, the song to me is super conflicting and doesn't 100% make sense. And I feel like there's a lot of ways it can be interpreted. That kind of like is the theme of the two characters and what they're going through.
hmm.
That's why I picked it to be in that book.
Well, that's excellent news because I have some questions for you about the lyrics, which we will definitely get to. Because I agree with everything you said about the lyrics, the multiple potential for meanings, the confusion surrounding them. The song "Kill the Messenger," as well as the entire album, as I said earlier, was produced by Jim Wirt, and it was also produced by Andrew McMahon. Andrew signed with Maverick Records for the release of this album, which was different from the last album he had done with Something Corporate. They were on MCA, but MCA was absorbed by Geffen Records, so probably not good for a smaller band like Something Corporate for a big record company to take over a small one, just kind of absorb them, and they probably got lost in the shuffle. So my impression is Andrew was looking for something different, so he signed with Maverick for Everything in Transit. Maverick was started by Madonna in the early 90s, and it was kind of her record label, but she eventually left. And at the time that they picked up Jack's Mannequin for Everything in Transit, they were kind of known as this fostering upcoming genres type of record company. And other bands on their roster included Story of the Year, who I think you and I have talked about briefly,
Yep.
and then Muse, who I honestly don't know too much by Muse. I kind of like some of the stuff I've heard, but I wouldn't call myself a fan. All that to say, I know nowadays the record company system works a lot differently where artists can just put out music now. Yeah, it's probably helpful to have a record label. They're supposed to promote you and put you on tour and that sort of thing. But anybody can put out music now, which is really cool. It kind of allows anybody to share their art out. Now, looking at you as an author, Hazel, do you find that to be a better system for like an author making the comparison? I mean, is it easier to share out your art nowadays than maybe it was 25 years ago or 20 years ago?
Yeah, totally. As you were saying that, I was actually thinking of the correlation there from a traditional published author versus a self-published. And honestly, I think there's a little more freedom. It's not so rigid. There's a lot more rules when it comes to traditionally publishing a book from, how long each chapter can be, how long your
Hmm.
entire book can be, and what the cover looks like. Whereas when you self-publish, you have the freedom. The cover can be however you want it to look. If you
Mm-hmm.
want one chapter to be 2 pages and the next chapter to be 20, you can do that. And so I think it's just a lot easier for people to just share your art.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of authors spend a lot of time trying to get their book published and being rejected and rejected. And, just to maybe finally get picked up and be published, where it's, I don't know if satisfying is the right word, but it's
It's more freedom, right? More
more freedom.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
with the art. That's really neat that you have that opportunity to do that. And so are your books considered self-published then, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All
They're
right.
considered self-published. Eventually down the road, books that have already been published don't tend to be picked up by a publisher
Mm-hmm.
unless it's like a big hit. But, maybe down the road after I write this series, I don't know what I really want to do, but I've considered maybe writing and trying to go the traditionally published route. So we'll kind of see.
Oh, okay. Very
But
cool.
I wonder for though being able to just publish or release your music without having to go through a record label, if you have those same kinds of freedoms and how your music sounds, how your album cover looks, I'd be curious to know.
I would have to assume so. And with the connection back to Andrew and everything in transit, obviously he still had a record label to answer to, but I know that he was seeking freedom, seeking to be able to do his own thing and have control over those things and not have to go through like a chain of people to get permission through for the songs he's writing and the album tracking and the probably the album artwork. I mean, you talked about book artwork, probably album artwork as well. There's probably so many avenues and channels and people you have to go through to get approvals and make sure that yeah, this is how we want to, Jack's Mannequin to look or something corporate to look as an artist, as someone who self-publishes like yourself or somebody who's doing it independently like a lot of musicians these days now. They may not have all those channels, and maybe that's something that Andrew was seeking. And I don't know if he got that with everything in transit, but I know that was one of his goals was to have a little bit more freedom on his hands. So did you? I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, you and I. Did you remember that Tommy Lee from Motley Crue drummed on Everything in Transit?
If we haven't talked about it, I heard you mention it
Hmm.
on other episodes.
Yeah. Do you know how that ended up happening? I mean, it's hard for me to imagine how this happens. Like Motley Crue, we think of as like this hair metal or heavy metal band from the 1980s, and our guy Andrew McMahon from Something Corporate is now working on music with Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. Do you know how that happened?
No, do you?
I did find a little bit out. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's very very vague the details. But here's what I know. He said I heard Andrew say in an interview that he found out through mutual business associates that Tommy Lee has been a big fan of Something Corporate's North, which Tommy Lee must have good taste in music because I'm a huge
Oh,
fan of North.
that's awesome.
I guess Tommy called Andrew, or he was put in touch with Andrew for help on one of his songs. So Andrew was like, "Oh yeah, you're a fan? Cool. Sure, I'll work with you." And Andrew worked on a couple songs with Tommy Lee for his album at the time, which I don't know. Eventually, I'll probably talk about on this podcast that song that they worked on. And then from there, they started recording together. So I think it was kind of a, hey, you help me out, and then I'll come over and drum on your album, or maybe it was kind of after the fact. I don't know. I don't know the details. I can't imagine Andrew being like, hey, I'll have Tommy Lee from Motley Crue just drum on these tracks. But
Yeah.
hey, some of these songs, like the one we talked about last time, or one of the other times, "Rescued," it's like hard to imagine Tommy Lee, the persona of Tommy Lee
Yeah.
drumming on that song.
He's just
But
like slowly back there
yeah,
hitting.
yeah, I mean, hey, the guy's got everybody has a soft side, right? So
Yeah.
he was reaching into his inner emo. All right, so let's talk about live music because I definitely want to talk about what's coming up here. According to Setlist FM, Jack's Mannequins performed this song 97 times, and by Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, it's been performed 16 times. The very last time of which was in Columbus, Ohio, December 1st, 2023. So I was there at that show, the New Friends tour. I'll come back to that point, but that was awesome. But this song's been performed for a total of 113 times in concert. I don't see this as a song that comes up a lot in the set list though in a normal show, but I don't know. Have you ever seen this song in concert?
No, I went back and I checked on Setlist FM because I was like, I don't think I've ever. And so I went back and looked at no, I've not heard it.
Okay. Well, I was fortunate to hear it again on the Everything in Transit 10 Years tour. I definitely remember that show here in Columbus, but also last year, it was a pretty special moment. I am going to link a video in the show notes. My friend Julie, who I know through the fan base, was at that same show, and she was up front, and she actually did take video of the whole thing. I think I had posted in the Facebook group, the fan Facebook group, and I was like, oh, if anybody got video of Kill the Messenger, and she was like, I did actually. And she put it on YouTube, and so that's the video I'm going to link. And oh my gosh, watching that video back gave me chills. Not only because I was there, but what they did toward the end. It was just really special. There was like this little bit more powerful drums. Ironically, we were talking about Tommy Lee and being a hard rock heavy metal drummer. The drums kind of really kick in toward the end of this live version, and then they kind of get a little bit heavier. And then they do this weird thing in this live version. They busted into, they kind of mashed it up with Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. Do you know that song?
I don't.
It's a Police song from the 1980s, and I'm not the world's biggest Police fan, but I do have their greatest hits album on CD. I don't know the last time I've pulled that out, but I do have it. And it's not my favorite Police song. Don't think I'd go to that one, but it was kind of neat to see something different. But there was kind of a big climactic ending to that song in the live version, which I really appreciated, because when I listen to the album, I don't necessarily think about it as this big rock song, but it does get kind of energetic at points. I did really appreciate that. So that was the New Friends tour in 2023, like I said. I don't know, that outro was just so passionate and electric. I got pretty emotional in that moment in the concert, but also rewatching it. It's really neat when I don't have to be the one to take the video at the concert, and I can go back and watch a concert that I was at, but someone else took the video. I like that.
You get all the feelings. I'll have to go check that one out.
Yeah, for sure. I would highly recommend it. I remember you the first time we met on this podcast. You told me you've never seen Jack's Mannequin live, right?
That is correct.
Could this be your year?
This should be my year. So I bought tickets to Red Rocks, and
oh, that's right. Okay, you're already committed. You already have a ticket.
I've got my tickets. I just need to figure out, the plane ride and the hotel stay. But I'm determined to get there, and hopefully, this anticipation of waiting for them to announce hopefully like a full tour. Maybe they'll be coming around where I live. I'll definitely be trying to see them in the smaller venue as well.
When he tours, regardless of which band he tours with, he almost always comes to your city, right? Or your metro area.
Yeah, I mean I'm by San Francisco, so I think almost always get a show.
That's awesome. We don't always get one here in Columbus, but we always get an Ohio show. So like it's either Columbus or Cleveland or Cincinnati, or sometimes two of them. I'm pretty fortunate. Living where I live in the Midwest, I can get to like 5 different cities within 3 hours, depending on which direction I go in. So it's not so bad, but Columbus would be prime for me because it's only a half hour away, down to the venue. So
oh, that's nice.
yeah, that would be nice. So Columbus is a much smaller city than San Francisco. Therefore, it's a little bit easier to get in and out of the city for these shows and park and everything. So you may be going to Red Rocks, it sounds like. Yeah, so I'm anticipating a tour date drop any time now. I was posting on Camp Wilderness. I was like, hey, around Christmas time, I was like, can we please have a tour announcement in our stocking when we wake up Christmas morning or something? Because we're starting to plan our year. Like my family, we always plan like, not a lot, but we go on little mini trips to visit family on the weekends in the summer and things like that. And so I'm trying to plan around all these things that are being planned now. And I really need
You're like, I need the list of shows.
Yeah, I need to know, like, if I need to make it up to Cleveland, that I'm not in Detroit visiting family, or maybe if I'm going to visit family in Detroit anyway, we'll plan that around the Jack's Mannequin show sort of thing. So,
that makes sense.
yeah, so I've been able to pull that off once or twice. So we shall see if that works in my favor or not. So Andrew, we are waiting patiently. Another tour date that has already dropped, actually, as of this recording, I think it was yesterday or today, the Bonnaroo Festival announced that they were going to have Jack's Mannequin there. So that's a huge one. I have no intention of going. Nothing against Bonnaroo. I don't typically do ginormous festivals for multiple days. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. Speaking of festivals, a little bit more on your side of the country. They're going to be at When We Were Young.
Okay, that's right. They're going to be at When We Were Young. I went 2 years ago. Yeah, we met up there.
Yeah.
2 years ago. And then I bought tickets for Warped Tour down in Long Beach.
Oh, cool.
Even though they haven't announced the lineup, I'm like,
gosh.
my fingers are crossed that Jack's Mannequin is going to play. So I'm hoping for that.
I am hopeful for you because I think that would be a really cool type of event for Jack's Mannequin to play. I have no idea what that lineup's going to look like. I'm hearing rumors that maybe a couple of big names, but then a lot of like maybe newer or smaller acts. So kind of like a really real mix of all sizes of acts, let's say. But Jack's Mannequin would kind of fill that, mid spot, maybe not a headliner, but not exactly an unknown either. Yeah, I'm hopeful for you. There's a Washington, D.C. version of the Warped Tour, and that's about a 9.5 hour drive for me. So probably not doing that unless I make a whole trip out of it. Like again, hey, family vacation time, right?
Yeah.
To D.C. Probably not, to be realistic. I can dream, right? Because I think that would be cool to go to the Warped Tour. I did not buy a ticket, obviously, but we'll see what happens. So I, too, am hoping for a proper tour where I can just see them kind of locally this time around. Like I did last year, I was able to catch a couple dates. So know When We Were Young for you this time around. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was too much.
Yeah.
It was just a lot. I loved it and it was
Mhm.
fun and something corporate
For a
performed
one-time
that
thing, yeah.
year. But yeah, I think a one-time thing. I'm too old. My body hurt.
Yeah, it was a long day, long day.
Right, and I was there on Saturday,
Yeah.
and we had met Friday for the House of Blues something corporate show. So we were, you know, up late that night, got up
Yes.
early, and it was just so unbearably hot. But it was fun. We
Yeah.
we had a good time, but I was like kind of one and done.
Yeah, understandable. I'm not sure how to feel about When We Were Young this year because I would love to go, but all the things you said, I feel if they announced a late show for that at some point, I'd be very tempted to like check flight prices just to relive that experience that we had. That was so much fun that night. So
I mean, I'd go to Vegas just to go see a sideshow of Jack's Mannequin.
heck yeah. Like to me that I mean the festival was great. It was fun. It was a unique experience and I liked seeing all those bands. But to me the headline show was that Something Corporate show for that trip. So,
Yeah, that was amazing.
yeah. So we've talked about you have not seen Kill the Messenger perform live. Is this a song that you're hoping to see perform live when you see them maybe on that proper tour later this year?
Oh, I would love that. Yes. I want to hear the entire Everything in Transit album.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to go. So we have not heard I have not heard in any way, shape, or form that this is going to be like a completely everything in transit tour like the 10-year and the 15-year drive-ins were. So I don't know if they're going to mix it up and it's just going to be a more general Jack's Mannequin tour, or if we're going to get the everything in transit plus 5 or 10 other songs type of thing. It remains to be seen. So I also do hope that it's everything in transit focused. I like the other albums, but I'm kind of ready to hear that album all the way through again. Let's talk about songwriting. Andrew had this online blog back in 2005, which, again, I did not know about until many years later. And I started researching for this podcast back in 2020, and I came across it. There's certain websites you can still go to that are kind of saved from the past. And like when you go to these websites, it's like pulling from a
Like an archive.
there you go. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Like an archive. And the old Jack's Mannequin site is one of them. And that's why you can still find it out there. Somebody's done that, which is awesome. Anyway, yeah, you can go look through his old blog and find this stuff. I'll link that in the show notes. I know I've linked it there before. And if anybody ever wants to do a deep dive into what Andrew was saying to his fans in 2005 on the internet, well, you can find it because what else is the internet for?
I saw the link that you had sent earlier, and so I went on it, and I actually thought it was like a virus
Oh,
because
no.
it made me like check that I'm a real person, and it just seemed really fake. Then it took me there, and I was like, okay, we're good.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to be known for the guy that sends you suspicious internet links to click. Those are the emails they warn you about at work, right? Like, don't click
Right.
suspicious links.
And look at me, I clicked it, and I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, I'm a human. Send me to Jack Mannequin's blog.
yeah. jacksmannequinblog.com or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it didn't even sound like a real website. So I sent you that graphic, and I'm going to actually pull it up on my screen right now so we can look at it, and I'll share this out on Instagram. So, or when you're listening to this, go out on my Instagram, and you'll see this graphic that I'm going to share with Hazel right now. So this graphic, I'll just describe it since this is an audio-only podcast. Every lyric to Kill the Messenger is on basically notebook paper with a sketch of a church. I think is it a church or is it like a college building or?
I thought it was a church. That
Okay.
was my first impression.
And that would make sense with the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a tree kind of in the forefront. The church has a steeple, and the lyrics are kind of written around it. And I assume it to be in Andrew's handwriting. And it says Kill the Messenger at the very bottom. And then it says a date, October 10th, 2004. I have to believe that the song was written around that time. That's the only context I have for that. Either that's the date he drew and wrote this, or that's the date that he wrote the song. I don't know. But had you ever seen this before?
No, I hadn't. I like the church. It's, I was like looking at it and I'm like, I wonder if that's a real church that he knew and he drew. Because it looks like he drew the church first
Hmm.
and then the lyrics were put in around it. I was also trying to figure out in the front right-hand side.
Oh, yeah. What is
Is
that?
that like is that like a bush? I was like, is that a tumbleweed? I don't
Hmm.
know.
I don't. Good question. I didn't even notice that before. I have no idea what that is. So again, I think I first saw it a few years back, and when I knew we were doing this song, I wanted to pull it back up, and I actually had the picture saved in my picture files on my computer. I knew I was going to use that eventually. I always thought this would make a good poster. I know it looks like it's on notebook paper, but I thought it might be cool to have a poster of that maybe with Andrew's signature. So maybe future merch item. Maybe revive that.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Did you happen to see the Holiday from Real one as well? There's a Holiday from Real graphic.
Yeah, I took a look at that one too.
I don't remember honestly if I talked about this when I did the Holiday from Real, when we covered Holiday from Real on this podcast. So there is all his handwritten lyrics of Holiday from Real, but this time there's a little plant at the bottom, like a little house plant. I don't know if this makes as good of a poster, honestly. I can't remember. Is there a date on this one? I didn't see one.
No, I don't see one either.
Okay, so we don't know exactly when that was written or when this was written out here. Let's talk about the sound of the song. From the first notes of this song, it absolutely gives me chills. Even lyrics aside, even before we get into lyrics, just the sound of it. I love the dynamic of the ballad-like verses, and then you have the chorus, which I mentioned earlier. It kind of gets more like a rock song in places. As you know, I like to listen to the songs in order, so I've always thought of this as the track that follows Miss Delaney. Miss Delaney's a little bit more playful. Even toward the end, you have that little bit of a harmonica outro, and then you come into Kill the Messenger, and it really gets back into some serious territory for the album, in my opinion.
Like that piano ding. You just hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very serious piano sound that he has going on at the beginning of this song. And you kind of know that the mood of the album is changing right then and there. Like I said, it's kind of at this sweet spot of track 8 after Miss Delaney and before Rescued. But speaking of which, have you ever seen the original track listing for Everything in Transit before Dark Blue or La 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 were on there?
No,
Did you happen to catch the Dear Jack documentary years ago?
it's been a while.
Yeah, and even if you have, by the way, it's flashed on the screen very quickly, and somebody paused that part of the movie and shared out that screenshot at some point. So a fellow fan, friend, podcast guest shared that with me. It actually shows like what the track list was at a certain point in the process. Again, Dark Blue and La 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 weren't on there. I know those were late ads. I knew that from prior research. What's interesting is that Kill the Messenger is track 5. And track 5 is right in the middle of the album. So not later in the album where Kill the Messenger actually ended up. It's after I'm Ready. So can you imagine going from I'm Ready to Kill the Messenger? What do you think about that? Would that still work?
Well, you know me. I don't always listen in order.
That's true. That's true.
I'm more of the put it on shuffle. But I will say, talking with you, and I do actually spend more time now listening from beginning to end, at least once or twice to just try to get a feel. Because I think there is something to your points that you've made about how it's like the entire story and how it
Yeah.
flows
One
and how
flows
the
into
pieces
another.
come together. Going back to your prior point about having it be number 5, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you the difference.
Yeah, and that's fair. Yeah, I should have remembered that point, that it wouldn't matter where it falls in the album. To me, it really would. I will say though, and this may be a hot take for a lot of fans who are like myself. We like to listen to the album in order, and that order is very important. And that's how we know the album, and it can't be any other way. But I will say, I think tracking Kill the Messenger away from Rescued on the album may have made it a stronger album. I love both of those songs fairly equally, but I do think they're kind of have a similar vibe to them. And maybe if they were separated by a more playful song like Miss Delaney, it might have made them both stronger. I don't know. I actually love the instrumentation in the second verse. There's this excellent drum fill that comes out of the first chorus going back into the second verse. And then he's got this pretty unique beat. The drum beat in the second verse almost feels like it shouldn't work with this song. Because again, the song kind of starts off with this moody piano. It's going to be kind of like a darker song. But this kind of like tracking beat he has in the second verse, again, if you kind of separate it all out, I don't feel like it should work, but it does. It ended up being perfect. And then the end of the song, we get some acoustic guitar, back to that light piano like it began, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this word correctly, but there's an instrument called a sitar at the end of it. And that's a little strange for this album, but I do know they were using a lot of different instruments, like things that he would never and could never have used in something corporate on the album. So just kind of trying different things. But the sitar came in at the end, and I know I've heard that instrument on newer Weezer songs, and I've heard it on Aerosmith songs. It's one of those instruments that you can definitely pick out. It's just so unique and different from like a guitar or a keyboard or the other typical instruments we hear in these songs.
Yeah, I'm so bad at figuring out what like instrument is what, except for, a drum, a
Yeah,
piano, maybe a guitar.
yeah.
But to me in the song, especially during the bridge
Hmm.
and right as the bridge is ending, the way that he's playing the piano, to me, it sounds like raindrops. And kind of going
Mm.
into the lyrics of the music, he talks about rain coming down.
Hmm.
And you had sent just an acoustic version of him playing the piano and singing the song. And I felt like you could kind of hear it there. But then on the actual album with the drums and with everything else, if you really listen, you can hear kind of the piano coming through, like rain hitting your window is kind of how I
Oh, well,
feel when I listen to it.
I think that's really clever of him to do to create that effect. I honestly didn't envision that with that sound, but I like where you're going with this. That does sound like something a musician would go for to kind of create the mood of the lyrics of the song with the sounds of the instruments. I definitely think of rain. I think of darkness when I hear this song, and we'll get into lyrics here in just a moment. I just want to point out also, did you remember that you mentioned the outro of this song when we talked about Rescued a couple years ago, or maybe last year?
No.
Little peek behind the curtain, by the way. This is not my stellar memory. Sometimes when I have a chance, I go back and listen to prior episodes I've done with a guest to prepare. This is not me having that great of a memory. That was just me walking the dog recently, and on my dog walks, I was listening back to pieces of our episodes, and I was like, I knew on the Rescued episode we had talked about Kill the Messenger, so I kind of wanted to go back and note that. But yeah, you picked out the beautiful way that it transitions from Kill the Messenger at the end of this song that we're talking about today and into Rescued.
Right. Because the piano kind of comes back in at the end of
Hmm.
Kill the Messenger and it's slow. And then it goes into Rescued, which is just the piano again.
Hmm.
Oh,
So you did listen in order at some
I
point.
must have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for playing along. I know it's not your typical way to listen to an album, but I do appreciate you. Do you want to go on to lyrics? Are you ready? Do you have anything else about the sound,
Yeah.
or are you ready for lyrics?
Yeah, let's jump into it.
Okay. Well, I don't know if there's any better place to start than the opening line to the song. Oh my God, this hurts like hell. That line is like a dagger in my heart. It's just like heartbreaking. I can really feel what he's singing there. And I say that for a lot of Andrew lines, I'm sure. But my gosh, the way he sings it in that line, and yeah, it's so simple. Oh my God, this hurts like hell. But I really feel like he means it when he sings this.
Yeah, I definitely can hear that, but I'd say for me, it's the last lyric of that first verse, a waking nightmare that is only worse when I am sleeping. That's the one that gets me.
I will say, of all songs on Everything in Transit, this may be one of the best lyrical songs on the album. The whole first verse really, but yeah, the waking nightmare that is only worse when I am sleeping. It's you get a visual, right, of what he could be going through, of how bad this is for him. It also is a great build, the way he builds that line, the way he sings it into the chorus and gets you to the chorus. I like that in the first verse right off the bat, we get the outer space reference.
Yeah.
And we also get, which it's a very good use of an outer space reference. I'm going to give him that. I was lost for good in outer space. And actually, to touch back to one of your favorite lines, that waking nightmare, the second line, so I'll just read through the whole first verse. Oh my God, this hurts like hell. I had that dream again where I was lost for good in outer space. Tell me, doctor, how to shake. A waking nightmare that is only worse than when I am sleeping. So I like that wordplay, how he goes, I had that dream again, and tell me, doctor, how to shake that waking nightmare that's only worse when I'm sleeping. It's so beautiful.
It's like simple but very descriptive as well. Like it's like you could just see somebody, like at their therapist or
Hmm.
something and just breaking down and looking for help. I don't know.
Do you ever think of the lyrics when you listen to these Everything in Transit era songs? Do you ever think about the irony or coincidence, maybe would be the better word, in the fact that he mentions get this man to a hospital in another song and tell me doctor here in this song? Although the doctor he's referring to here is probably more likely a mental health doctor. Do you ever find it odd that this is before he wrote all these songs before he ended up in a hospital for a long period of time and had cancer treatment?
I hadn't really thought about that before, but that's an interesting perspective. Almost like this
Like a premonition.
forward-looking. Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I hadn't thought of that.
And I know there's no truth to that, in a sense where that like he predicted that or he knew that was coming or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that at all. But it's just odd when you hear some of these lines about going to a doctor or get me to a hospital, and then he got sick later that year. So it's just kind of eerie, especially in such a dark song, what he physically had to go through later on that year after he wrote these songs. In my opinion, I said this is one of the best lyrical songs on the album. In my opinion, the second verse is just as good as the first. It's not so easy caving in. I walked by your apartment twice today while you were gone at work. All the colors got so dim. It's not as cold out here, but come quick. I'm losing feeling. Are there any lyrics in that verse that you thought were different?
So funny that you asked
I
because
knew
I
there. I
actually
thought
wrote,
there might be.
yeah, I always thought that it was, and all the colors got soaked down. I don't know, is that
That is not
what
what I
you were
expected you
thinking?
to say.
No. That I always thought it says all the colors got soaked down, and I just thought like soaked rain.
Hmm.
So that's literally what I've been singing for years. And then when I saw that so dim, I don't know, I don't hear that. So
That's soaked down. That's a pretty good line. I like that. But no, when you look on Spotify or some of the music lyric websites, and there's a lot of them out there, the all the colors got so dim. On Spotify, it says all the colors got so down, which didn't make any sense. And I looked at several lyric websites, and some of them say down, and some of them say dim. But if you look in the liner notes, he does say dim, got so dim. So I was able to confirm that. But it's hard for me to believe that a legitimate, music service like Spotify, sometimes it has the wrong lyrics. It's like, just like me on this podcast, sometimes I'm pulling from a website that doesn't have the right lyrics on it. So I guess I don't feel so bad. Spotify is making the same mistakes because I almost sent you the version that said "got so down," But yeah, it's not what Andrew's lyrics were. So, but yeah, no, I'd never heard your interpretation before. I like that. Got soaked down in this verse here. I feel like he's maybe regretting. I don't know. He's obviously out of a relationship at this point, and he's looking back at it, and that's my interpretation anyway. Maybe he's regretting it. I don't know. He's going by her apartment while she was at work, and he's just standing outside or kind of walking by, and feels like he's waiting for her. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree. Like that, the song is very heartbreaking, and I guess I don't understand or I don't know, or is Andrew the one who had his heart broken, or was he the one who did the heartbreaking? So I think it's like a little confusing, but I also think that's why I like it.
Uh huh.
It leaves it up for a lot of interpretation.
Even if he was the one to initiate the breakup with Kelly. I think there's still some heartbreak behind that when you do the breaking up. And I'm not sure if that's what you're asking or not, but just to kind of elaborate on that statement a little bit, I think that he initiated the breakup. I'm not even positive about that, so don't quote me on that. But I think he was also heartbroken at the idea of knowing she was a really special person, knowing this could be really great, but feeling like he had to go do something else for a while. And I think this verse, though, speaks to the regret of that. Yeah, he broke up with her or ended things or whatever, or maybe they mutually agreed to break up. I'm not really sure. But then he's like outside her apartment, like, oh my gosh, like I really should be inside that apartment. I should be with this girl. What am I doing? Did I make a big mistake? That's how I interpreted that verse. That he's just kind of longing. This is his longing for her, and what could have been in their relationship that he gave up. He chose to give it up. How about the so the chorus, kill the messenger. I don't have a real clear vision on what that means to me or could have meant to Andrew as the songwriter. I have a theory, but I don't know if again I'm kind of going off in this rogue direction here. Do you think Andrew is the messenger?
I I do because he says,
Someone that he used to know.
I swear it's not me, right? Because the saying is, don't kill the messenger.
Yeah.
Usually you're the person coming with maybe some bad news,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, hey, don't kill the messenger,
Right.
and then you say something. And in this instance, it's saying to kill the messenger because the messenger isn't me. It's like someone I used to be. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you go back to what you had just said prior about maybe he was the one to initiate the breakup, maybe this is his way of coming back and saying, yeah, I gave you this message a while ago and kill that messenger because
Yeah.
that wasn't me. And maybe it's like
I'm a new person now, or I'm gonna
I'm a
I'm
new
gonna be
person.
someone different than I
Yeah.
was at that moment. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. And I do really like that line. It's just someone I used to. I swear it's not me. It's just someone I used to know. Which, by the way, side note, again, I always thought he was saying it's just what I used to know, but this line makes so much more sense. It's just someone I used to know. It makes sense now. Prior to that, wasn't making sense. That does. I love that point that you make about this phrase that most adults in our culture know: "Don't kill the messenger." And most of us know what that means, and it is exactly what you described. So it's interesting that play again on a phrase that everyone knows, but kind of twisting it a little bit. Kill the messenger as opposed to don't kill the messenger. What do you think about the next lines in the chorus? He goes on to sing and get to church because you're a good girl, and I never told you that. I'm not going to ruminate on whether Kelly might be a religious person. That doesn't really matter to me in this context, even. But I'm assuming he means like he never told her how great she was.
Hmm. I could totally see that. I guess I think I always thought of it like maybe he thinks she's too good for him,
Oh,
right? Like,
no, that makes a whole lot of sense.
but on the last chorus, he says, get to church because you're a good girl. And he never told you that. So the first
Hmm.
one, he says, I never told you that. And then,
He is in the messenger, maybe.
oh my gosh. Yeah, because I was like, who is he?
Yeah, he's what he used to be, what he used to know, or
Oh my
someone he used to
goodness.
know.
I think we solved it. No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, breakthrough right here on the podcast in real time. Yeah, no, I think that's why I love digging into these lyrics. I mean, we can't know for sure what Andrew meant in these lyrics, but I love talking about it. I love going through this and trying to make our meaning out of it. And I don't know, I think that makes a whole lot of sense right there. This song makes more sense to me now than it did an hour ago when we started.
I know, but it's so funny because I still loved it then, and I don't think I even fully knew maybe what it meant. And right, we're just speculating, but
Yeah.
piecing it together line by line
Mm-hmm.
is really helpful.
Yeah, it can be. Let's come into the end of the chorus here. All I need from you could be the thing that leaves us both up here forever. I don't know what he means by that, but I'll tell you what, I love the way he delivers that line. Could be the thing that leaves us both up here forever. I've always loved listening to him sing that line. And then we get the iconic line, the one that, the whole fan base knows. If you're a big Andrew fan, I'm going to send a little rain your way. I don't know. There's just something magical about that line where I know that, I've heard stories about how, oh, we were at this show outdoors and he played that song and it started raining. I've heard that from a few people. For some reason, it feels like a magical line to me. I don't know. Like it's something really special. Whatever he means by it, it feels really special to me.
No, I like that. I think that's a good way
Yeah.
to put it. I love the bridge. That part to me is where I get like all the feelings in my heart. And especially the last two lines that send a little rain to pour down on you, rain that makes the flowers bloom, rain to leave you all alone, that keeps eyelashes falling and wishes washed away. I remember ever since I was a little kid, right? If you had an eyelash, you're supposed to blow it and make a wish. And have you
What?
ever heard that?
I didn't know this. Was I
Oh,
supposed to be doing this?
I don't know. Yeah, when you're a little kid, if you caught an eyelash and it was on your finger, you're supposed to blow it and make a wish.
No, I did not know that. I've probably missed the opportunity for lots of wishes that way.
So that's why I don't know, I just love that line because it's sad, right? Because
Yeah.
the wishes are being washed away because you're not able to catch your eyelash. But I don't know. So that part just really is special to me. I'm very curious to know if other people blew their eyelashes
Yeah, I
and
don't
made a
know.
wish.
Might have to do an Instagram poll on that one because I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe that's a California thing. I don't know. I doubt it. I'm sure it's just a thing that I missed. I think this bridge might give me the answer that I was looking for on the last piece of the chorus that I was talking about. Sending a little rain your way is a positive thing because he's sending a little rain to pour down to make her flowers bloom, so the world kind of bloom up and around her and make for beautiful things in her life. That is a really nice bridge. I'm glad you pointed that out. Rain to leave you all alone, but then I think maybe the end of that bridge, maybe his part of the story keeps eyelashes falling and wishes washed away because he's kind of left out.
Mm.
Heavy lyrics here, very emotional. These are the kind of lyrics in Andrew's songs that I personally live for. Honestly, most of the music I listen to, these are the kind of lyrics I'm looking for. Are the lyrics I can sing along to, maybe very sad, but also have this kind of hopeful nature in parts of them. Do you have a favorite part of this song in particular? Maybe we've already talked about it.
Yeah, I think it's the bridge.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful sounding bridge, beautiful lyrics there. I got to say that, and I mentioned one of these already. I have two favorite parts. They're both at the beginning of the verses. First is, of course, the very beginning of the song. I've already talked about the intro of the song itself, those perfect lyrics that I mentioned at the beginning of this whole lyrics talk, and then kind of the music to lead you in. But also coming back from the first chorus into the second verse, there's this kind of special thing about the way that second verse plays out. Love the lyrics in the verses, as I mentioned, but I also really love the music in the verses a lot. It's kind of a general way of saying I love the verses a whole lot. Does this song? We've talked about the characters in your books, and we've talked about how this is going to tie into this book that you're writing right now. How about for you personally? Does this song hold meaning for you personally?
Yeah, I think this has always been one of my favorite songs. It's a top one up there, and I don't really know how it applies or why I like it so much. And I think it might just be that I love sad songs. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is just what I gravitate to. So I don't think I have like a very specific moment in the song that I'm necessarily relating to.
Mm-hmm.
The song just kind of hits me and gives me this feeling that makes me really like it.
I think I can relate a lot to what you're saying there. It's the feeling of the entire song, not necessarily of any specific line where I can tie it to my own life. I feel like somehow I can relate to this song, even though maybe before just a little while ago I didn't know exactly what he meant, and I still don't know what he means, but I know what it means to me now. But yeah, like you, I can't tie the specific lyrics or anything to a specific point in my life, whereas it's that specifically personal. But it's a feeling. This song gives me this feeling that I love. And it could be sadness, and that's okay. Because as we talked about this on the Rescued episode too, we both like sad songs. In that whole idea in the song Rescued, where sometimes you just want to live in it a little bit. Sometimes you just want to, it's okay to let the sadness in and just kind of live in it. And that's kind of the theme of where I'm going with this as well, with Kill the Messenger. It's a sad song, but I love the feeling it gives me, even if it's kind of, a sadness. I feel like I can relate to that at certain points in my life. I love, and we talked about this. I love that it builds us into Rescued in a way, but it also captures the pain of a broken relationship and some of those confusing emotions that we touched on that go along with it. There's some good, there's some bad. You want the best for that person. You may have broken up with somebody, but maybe you still have feelings for them. It's a lot of confusion, and I'm kind of getting a sense to the confusion that could be between the couple in the next book that you're writing. Some of those feelings that are going to happen that we're going to read about soon. So we've got the updates on what's next for the Fire Island series. In your future books, you're going to continue to have playlists, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I will.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, Hazel. As always, we have a good time, good conversations. Like I said earlier, I would highly recommend those of you listening, if you haven't listened to the other episodes we've done. Hazel, we're going to have you back on the show next month. We're going to do a special episode where we're going to have you back talking about another Jack's Mannequin song. So we're going to keep Jack's January going, and we're going to have you and another former guest on the show.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to talking about that one. And yeah, that'll be my number five now.
You're
That's
trying to get that to keep that top spot for a while.
I know. I
I just love the fact that you and another former guest that I was talking to about coming back at the same time, you both suggested the same song, and that's the one we're going to talk about next. So I thought that was so cool. In the same week, you're both like, I think I might like to talk about these couple songs, and one of them was Kill the Messenger. I said, okay, great choice. And the other one was this other one that we're going to talk about. And then she sent me two ideas as well, one of which was the next song we're all going to talk about together. So I was like, well, you both want to talk about the same song. I've only done that one other time. It was for Constantine. Why not bring two guests back for this Jack's Mannequin song? We'll have her back for an episode coming up on her own, and then the two of you will return with us in February. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming. Any final thoughts? Anything that we missed here?
I just thanks again for having me and looking forward to talking with you again next month.
All right, great. I'm going to send a little rain to pour down on you, rain that makes the flowers bloom.